etc., etc. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the Town Hall staff. The assembly point is Tudor Square. So let's do introductions. I'm Councillor Joe Otten, Member for Dawn Totley and Chair of this committee. Mark.
Councillor Mary Lee Darnell Ward.
Councillor Peter Gilbert, Ecclesall Ward.
Christine Gilligan, Councillor for Hillsborough Ward and spokesperson for this committee.
Sue Alston, Councillor for Fulwood Ward.
Thank you. And officers, Rob.
Good morning, Robert Parkin, Assistant Director for Legal Services.
Morning all, Richard Eyre, Director of Street Scene and Regulations.
And Amanda Clayton, Democratic Services.
Thank you. We shall have more officers as the meeting proceeds. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Willis Marshall. I think the rest of us were all here. Also from Councillor Mark Jones. Oh, sorry, and also Councillor Mark Jones. Okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Moving on. Sorry, I've missed it. Item 2, exclusion of public and press. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have to close the meeting if members wish to discuss the item in the appendix to item 10. That was item 2. Item 3, declaration of interest. I think we have none. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting on page 11 of the pack. Are there any queries or comments on those? If not, can we agree them as a correct record? I'll take silence as the assent of the meeting. Those are agreed as a correct record. Thank you. Item 5, public petitions, questions and statements. So, do we have any of the people here who have asked public questions? I don't think we do. Okay, so...
Sorry, Chair, can I just give apologies from Hafiz Raymond because it's Eid this morning, so he's not able to attend.
Okay, I understand. So he's one of the members of the public asking a question. So the members of the public who've asked written questions will get written answers. One has asked for a supplementary question to be read, I understand. So that is the 4th question from Josh Rowan on vape shops and the fire risk associated with them. So yes, the supplementary that he has asked is this. When previously asked about the risk of vape shops post-Glasgow fire, the committee acknowledged general fire protections, but I believe it overlooked the unique thermal runaway risks of lithium-ion batteries in vapes. Vape shops, particularly those which double up as phone repair shops, as many currently do, stock uniquely large quantities of lithium-ion batteries. Yes, it has not been confirmed what ignited the fire, but we do know what fueled it. UK Fire Services highlight such batteries as causing intense, hard-to-extinguish blazes, which was evidenced by the struggle to contain the Glasgow fire, despite the firefighters being called within 5 minutes of the fire starting and arriving shortly after. Will you commit to SYFR, I guess that's South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue, guided inspections as soon as possible, providing a deadline for re-inspections of every vape shop under residential historic buildings, like the Woodhouse 87A Pinston Street, before a disaster strikes Sheffield? So, thank you, Josh, if you're watching, for that question. You'll get a full answer in writing. I think it's worth saying that, obviously, yes, here we go. There is some provided answer. As per our previous answer on this issue, the exact cause and circumstances and any lessons learned from the Glasgow fire have yet to be determined. We will speak to SYFR in respect of our visits to these premises and take any advice they offer. I think it's also worth saying that you can obviously, of course, put questions such as this to the Fire Authority directly, that they hold meetings of their authority, and they will take public questions. So I would suggest you might consider doing that if you think that would be useful. I do think we all recognise the fire risk from lithium batteries, not only vape shops, also large collections of e-bikes have been responsible for very large and hard to extinguish fires on a number of occasions. So I think it is welcome, and we will have discussions. And can we have discussions in the next briefing, Richard, on where we sit in terms of what our powers are in terms of regulating, public safety around shops that might be storing large numbers of lithium batteries. Thank you. Right. Moving on, therefore, the next item on the agenda is item 6, members' questions. We have had 21, is it, members' questions from Councillor Rusling. Mark, would you like to ask... Round of applause from Councillor Mark. Would you like to ask any supplementaries on these?
Yes, I will, but you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to do 10 minutes on each of them. I think first to commend the work of the various people who've put in questions via me on the potholes, and I'd just like to ask a supplementary, a global pothole supplementary one, because obviously it's an issue that every single person in the council and every single resident will have experienced over the last couple of months, the massive proliferation of potholes on roads in and around the city. And I think what residents will need to see, and I know that there's a new website and web page that will be updated, I think on a daily basis, to show where the potholes are going to be fixed. But I think what residents want to see is that the number of potholes reported is lower than the number of potholes fixed on a weekly basis. And I just think it's very important that we get that message out there and that the work is done, and then that residents can see if there's a pothole that is reported as fixed and hasn't been fixed, then they can report that through their councillors, and we can follow that up.
Thank you. Was there a question in that? No. Well, I quite agree. Mark. Thank you. So you don't have any other supplementaries? No. All right. Thank you. So moving on, item 7, work programme. Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. As this is the last meeting of the municipal year, no further comments to add. Obviously, we have a planned work programming session that will take place in June, hopefully to flesh out the next year's programme.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? In that case, can we agree the work programme? I'll take silence as the assent of the meeting. That is agreed. Thank you. Item 8, budget monitoring.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Same, Jane.
I'm Jane Wilby, Assistant Director of Finance and Accounting, and I'm here to introduce the Quarter 3 budget monitoring for 25-26 with a particular focus on the Environmental Services and Regulation Committee. Members will be aware that this report's already been considered by the Finance and Performance Committee, so I'll keep the wider council context high level and focus on the committee budgets, performance, risks and key issues. At a council-wide level, Quarter 3 position shows a continued improvement year on year in our in-year finances. The forecast overspends reduced from 23.6 million at Quarter 2 to 18.9 million at Quarter 3, which is a 4.7 million improvement in the quarter. The improvement reflects sustained progress in SEND transport, some stabilisation in children's services, and the impact of corporate spend controls and recruitment restrictions. It is important to be clear the significant pressures remain, particularly in adult social care and other demand and market-driven services. So while the direction of travel is improving, the overall position still requires tight financial discipline through the rest of the year. Turning to this committee's position, at Quarter 3, the ERS committee is forecasting a net underspend of 0.7 million against a net budget of approximately 73 million. So it's a positive and stable performance reflecting stronger than expected income performance and effective in-year management. The underspend is driven by parking services income with forecast of 0.6 million favourable variance, which reflects increased enforcement activity and impact of new initiatives that have strengthened income collection. There is a small 0.2 million one-off saving within city centre management costs, contributing to the overall position, and together these have more than offset pressures elsewhere in the committee's budgets. In terms of savings, the committee is forecasting 1.6 million against the identified 1.8 million savings. The shortfall has been mitigated through that increased parking performance, meaning there's no material impact on the overall in-year position. Recruitment restrictions and revised income forecasting has also contributed £500,000 improvement to the forecast since Quarter 1, reinforcing the strength of the current position. So while the position is positive, members should note that the ERS Environmental Services and Regulations portfolio remains sensitive to income assumptions, particularly around parking and enforcement activity and wider economic and behavioural factors that influence demand. Maintaining this position will therefore require continued close monitoring of income trends and operational performance throughout the Q4. Looking ahead, the Council's now got the benefit of a multi-year funding settlement which provides greater certainty and supports more confident planning. This does give us some comfort in the short to medium term, but it doesn't remove the need to modernise how we operate or ensure that income-dependent services are resilient and sustainable. For ERS, this means continuing to strengthen income forecasting and assurance, embedding sustainable operating models rather than relying on one-off gains, and aligning service and digital improvements to the wider Future Sheffield transformation programme. Future Sheffield remains critical to moving away from short-term mitigations and towards long-term financial sustainability through modernisation, productivity improvements and better use of data and digital tools. So, in summary, Chair, the Q3 position for this committee is positive with an underspend of 0.7 million, savings delivery strong with minor slippage mitigated in year, and the medium-term focus remains on transformation, modernisation and sustainability, even with the improved funding certainty. So I'm happy to take any questions or explore any further aspects of this committee's budgets alongside service colleagues.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? Richard.
Thanks, Chair. Just what I'm aware, this is the last committee of the municipal year, and potentially will not be meeting again until June, July. So Q4, our outlook report won't be available until then. But just to give members some confidence, that position, which colleagues just explained, is sustained into month 10. So we are looking at that figure going into month 11 and month 12. So we are confident we can sustain that current forecast position going to the end of the year.
Thank you. Mark.
Just on that, is there contingency being made for how we can proactively respond to government announcements? And I'm thinking particularly, I'm not asking for a response at this stage because it's only a few hours old, but the announcement on waste crime that came out overnight is a really positive one, and we presumably want to put resources in to back that up in our communities.
Yeah, good question. I'm like you, I've just seen the headlines, so I don't know the detail. I don't know if there's any burdens funding coming with that at all. So we'll wait for the full detail behind that. But obviously, we've got a small contingency in our budget. We've got an underspend. But as Jane's already explained, the corporate position needs to improve and continuously improve. But you're absolutely right. When we get changes in legislation, that horizon scanning, we can use that then to start to flex, so we can start to make sure we've got the right resources in place to be able to respond to that.
Thank you. I mean, don't keep us in suspense, Mark. What's this thing about waste crime?
Well, I was going to save it till later, Joe, but...
Okay, no, that's fine. You can save it till later.
No, it seems a good point now. The Environment Agency and DEFRA have come out this overnight with new powers that are going to be consulted on in a waste crime action plan. And I think a couple of points for Sheffield. One of the 3 areas that's going to be proactively cleared is in Darnall, on Worthing Road, 20,000 tonnes of waste that's been closed off and will be removed proactively. I think there are another couple of aspects which would feed into the budget point, but the new powers for Environment Agency officers, the fact that if you get caught doing this, you can have penalty points put on your driving licences. Actually, this is great, this is the Environment Agency, but there's a local action that we could take on the back of it, and we'd want to be quite nimble with that around massive things like happening in Mary's ward, but smaller fly tips that we'll see across the city as well.
Thank you. Marvellous. Mary.
I just want to, I mean, obviously, I think I know, I'm sure I know which site it is, and I'm not sure what I can say, other than we started some work on that a few years back, and a very difficult situation. I just want to thank officers for the work they did, because it was exceptionally difficult, and I've got photographs as well to prove it.
Thank you. Okay, so coming back to the budget monitoring, I mean, I'm sure as members we could all comment on you know the housing budget and the social care budgets and so on. I'm not sure it's a useful and proper thing for us to do here. Good luck with all that, though. I will say it does seem that most of this is out of our control. It's demand-led, isn't it? And so if we, you know, I suppose the question would be, are you trying very subtly to alert us to any of the causes of this demand that we might be able to do something about if we have friends in the corridors of power, Mark?
If you can solve the council's budget issues in this committee, then we obviously welcome that, but I'm not sure that's entirely possible. But I think it's just important to maintain the wider council perspective and understand where, you know, council finances are, where the national picture is as well, in local government. So, yeah, and as we've said earlier, strong performance on the budgets within this committee's remit, proactive control, close monitoring, but thinking about the future sensitivities in terms of income, particularly because we've had some, you know, good performance in income in this year for parking services, which has helped mitigate the overall position. So, as Richard said, it contributes to the overall bottom line, really. So we need to have some of those positive performing budget areas across the council to mitigate and offset where we have got the demand-led services that are largely very, very difficult to control and manage.
Yes, actually on that, of course, NCP, we understand, have gone into administration. Are we expecting any impact in terms of, you know, more people using our car parks? Are they going to, presumably they still operate under administration anyway as car parks and are likely to under a new owner. But we're not expecting any impact on us or opportunities for us to expand our revenues in that area.
Yeah, because the NCP are in administration, they can still operate, and they're still operating at the moment. Obviously, there's a number of jobs linked to that, particularly in Sheffield as well. So hopefully that'll get resolved pretty quick. Yeah, we're always looking at opportunities from a sort of car park operator perspective. We only control around 18% of the spaces in the city centre, particularly, as members know. So yes, we're always looking at opportunities, but we're trying to work and support NCP and particularly that workforce in Sheffield as much as we can. We're not seeing any direct impact on our car parks as yet, but it's quite early days. So we might see an increase, if the worst case happens for NCP, we will see an increase in usability of our spaces, but at the moment that's not materialised.
Marvellous. Well, if we can buy them all for £1 or something, you know, let's hope we can. All right, any final comments on this report? No? In that case, can we agree to, I'm presuming to note, the report? Is that agreed? Thank you. I'll take silence. That is agreed. Thank you, Jane. Next item is the market strategy annual review. This has come on a supplementary paper. The only difference between the supplementary paper and the original one is that the recommendations have been revised for clarity and reduced in number. So the recommendations in the supplementary pack are the ones that we'll be considering, but the report, if you read the full report, it's the same. Ben.
Morning, thank you, Chair. First of all, can I just say thank you to the report author, Parveen Ahmed, who unfortunately can't be here today, but thank you for pulling this report together. So this report is a year one update on the market strategy that was approved last year in July 2025, which has aimed to modernise the city's markets, strengthen financial sustainability, improve operational consistency across all sites. So we've focused in terms of delivery across 4 core work streams this year: facilities management, property management, finance, communications and engagement. So key achievements included in the report so far include a structured planned preventive maintenance programme, strengthens compliance processes, improve visibility of estates management needs and early work to refresh occupancy and lettings policies. A comprehensive review of financial model is underway at the moment to support the long-term sustainability of the markets, alongside new measures to track income, expenditure and progress towards full cost recovery. Communication with traders and stakeholders is key and will be improved through the appointment of a dedicated social media communications officer and the appointment of the councillor task and finish group to provide a political oversight. These actions support more consistent engagement and clearer feedback mechanisms. Delivery during year one has taken place within a challenging economic and retailing context, reinforcing the need for a flexible, evidence-led approach. The strategy will continue to support wider council plan outcomes, including economic inclusion, neighbourhood activation, and sustainable local shopping. And the recommendations for the committee include noting the progress in all areas of compliance and maintenance standards across the market sites, the better aligned property management to support full-term, long-term sustainability, progress towards the financial cost recovery and modernising Sheffield markets, to appoint the council task and finish group to provide that political oversight, and just note progress and endorse the continued delivery of the strategy.
Members? Christine?
Thank you for this. I know we discussed this in a briefing, and I understood that we didn't want to cancel a reference group, and that we talked about just having regular briefings to the committee. So I'm just wondering, has the council a reference group? What will it do and who will be in it? And I'm just curious because we had a task and finish group and that finished, and I just want to know why we need another one.
I think in knowledge briefings what we were keen to do was involve, there's some people who aren't part of the regular knowledge briefings that have got a particular oversight for markets. So for example, there is a councillor who represents Sheffield on the NABMA organisation nationally that wouldn't be normally part of those knowledge briefings. So I think the ask, as we understood it at the pre-agenda meetings, was to pull a specific group together that could reflect on the progress and comment that was wider than the normal knowledge briefing group. Obviously, if members would like to review that, then we'll take that away. But I think keeping that oversight is important. So we do expect, obviously, members of this committee to be as part of that, but it just wanted to enable other members that have got key impact to be part of that as well.
Mary?
That was my understanding, the recommendations that we have drawn a group together, and we'd had a discussion about how cross-party that group should be, because I think it was loaded towards a particular party. The task and finish group had more Labour members than others in last year and beyond. So, yeah, I think it's the economics of the market and the costs and the issues and the pressures are really important. So I think that political oversight is really good. And you say it shouldn't necessarily just be drawn from this committee, but other places as well, because people have expertise that they can bring.
So I think I take the points that have been made. I think it would be useful to have a group of members who are particularly interested in markets. I know reference has been made to some members already. I'm aware of some members who are particularly interested in who represent wards around Crystal Peaks or more, who are interested for that reason. And who aren't members of this committee. And so, you know, involving member oversight in a service where members are keen to do it, I think is generally a good principle, whatever the service is. So it's a question exactly how we construct that, and if we've got the terms of it and all that sort of thing right. I suppose I'm slightly unclear because we're calling it another task and finish group, aren't we? And are we, if it's ongoing oversight of the services, not really got a finish, has it? So do we need to call it something else? And do we need to be clear, you know, what the expectations are?
Yeah, I think we probably just need to look towards Robert there in terms of advice of what this committee can put in place or not. My understanding is obviously a task and finish will be committed by the committee. I don't know if we need further discussion around how something else would be put together. So, Robert, have you got any views?
Yeah, so the Constitution doesn't allow for delegations to members from committees apart from in the terms prescribed. In this context, it would be a working group. If it is just to be an informal setting as part of the preparation for matters going forward, that's something that members and officers can develop perhaps through yourself chairing briefings. But if it's a formal asset of the committee being decided upon today, it would be a working group. If you want to set a limit on its time, as it were, on a limit on its activity, you perhaps could do so by reference to time. as a suggestion.
Well, I mean, this is the problem. I think that as conceived, it is conceived of as an ongoing group, isn't it? And not something with a specific task that it has to finish. And therefore, I think Councillor Cooper is correct that we don't want a task and finish group. I don't think we need I don't know quite what formality does for us either, frankly. So I would be content, if members are content, with an informal members reference group to which we invite other members of the council who aren't on this committee to attend. Is it Mark?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, and it should be biased towards people with a personal expertise and not just interest. And obviously, we know one of our group definitely does, and I'm sure there are others. But then I think as well, we should have an informal group, but formally mandated to look particularly at Crystal Peaks. Because clearly there are issues happening around Crystal Peaks that are different to them all.
Oh, dear
so
me.
I think we should recognise that.
Rob, can we formally mandate an informal group? Is that something that we
I was
can do?
slightly tongue-in-cheek.
Formally record the committee's interest in dealing with that as part of its work.
There we go. Excellent. So I think where we seem to be headed is not to agree recommendation B, but to agree informally, and therefore we don't need to think about it in terms of recommendations. An informal members reference group be established that all members of the council are invited to take part in. We may not want them all. We may consider questions of balance, but I think we should certainly want a few of them. Is that? The members agree to that. Okay, well, let's do that. So, are there any other? Okay, so I think we're heading to not agreeing recommendation B. Are there any other comments or questions on the whole report? Sue, and then Mary Sue first.
Thank you for this report. I think I just remain unconvinced about the reality of having full cost recovery, and I just wondered whether, is this a realistic aim, and if so, you know, are we on target to getting there at some point in the foreseeable future, or should we actually be thinking that's not going to happen, and therefore, you know, framing the commitments differently? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So I think where we're referring to full cost recovery is specifically around the service charges that are applicable to the Moor and Crystal Peaks markets. So I think as part of the financial work that we're doing, we're being really, really clear about driving costs down across the board. So making sure that, you know, there's really good value, low cost services that are in place at the market that would then be recharged. Areas that obviously we might not be able to have as much influence over, so things like energy costs that are subject to wider market forces, and we've got, you know, kind of recognising that we're in a particularly difficult period at the moment, but we need to understand what those costs are and provide some certainty, I think, to traders so that they know they're not going to have massive fluctuations in these. So the costs that are full cost recovery, they are the costs that the council are paying. We haven't paid those, and it's about kind of passing on the amount of those. We will drive the cost down as low as we can do. The bit that we've got more flexibility on then is across looking at other charges that might be applicable. So, you know, what can we do around the rents in place and making sure that actually what we're not doing is pricing people out of becoming a market trader. So I think that's the key bit that I think you're correct on. We've got to make sure that the overall financial model is affordable and enables people to run small businesses in the city, and that's absolutely what we want to do. We want thriving, diverse markets that people can enjoy taking part in and can make a living at as well. So we will absolutely be bearing that in mind in terms of the financial model that's put together. But I think it is important that we're really clear about the costs that the council can pass on to traders, and they can have some certainty about that and plan for that in the future. And it's important that we drive those costs down as low as possible and are flexible across rents where we need to be.
Ben, can you just be completely clear exactly what we're deciding today? I mean, there's a reference to progress towards full cost recovery in the reports. Now, progress towards can mean a number of things, can't it? And the decision we're taking today doesn't do anything towards that. It's just a statement of policy that we intend to make progress towards full cost recovery. Is that basically what we decide? Is that it?
Chair, in terms of what's here today, it's to update you on the work that's been taking place. There's no decision you're taking today that ties you into what that financial model is at this particular point. That will come back to committee when we've done that piece of work, and it'll be completely clear and transparent, and at that point you'll be making a decision on that. This is about the work that's going into developing that and giving you confidence that that work is progressing.
Okay, Mary, then Christine.
Well, I'd agree. I think, the markets really contribute to the economy of the city, particularly the Moor, but also Crystal Peaks. But there are pressures that we have to deal with, and I think having some oversight on that is, really important, rather than just bringing something back every 12 months. So I'd say, yeah, one of those, that's an important part of the recommendations. I was going to go back to the numbers of the reference group. Can we just give some thought to numbers and how proportionate you want that, or does it need to be proportionate in terms of political numbers? Just not now, but get some advice on that.
Thanks. Just on that, I'm happy to invite members to put their names forward and see who we get, and then consider that question. I'm not massively personally committed to any particular formula. Christine. Oh, sorry. Was that a question to Ben? Okay. Christine.
Okay. I think I just heard you say something about electricity costs, and I'm just curious because we know that whatever happens, the price of electricity is going to go up, and that's beyond our control. So are you suggesting that for market traders it won't, and the council will take all the burden on that, or is that... I'm just curious because it is going to be an issue we're going to have to discuss across a lot of areas at the moment. So did you just say that market traders will be protected from these costs?
Sorry, I didn't know. Just because I was saying we need to be aware of that, and we need to think about what our financial model looks like with that. But yeah, we're working through the financial model at the moment. We just need to bear in mind there are excessive costs at the moment around energy. We don't pass those full costs on currently, and again, that's what this model's about, is coming back and saying, what's the correct approach here? What is the correct, and that's what will come back to committee in future, but we are working through those at the moment.
I mean, we're still in the position, aren't we? Because we had a paper come to this committee for the recharging of electricity, because we were charging it at a fixed price, and obviously the price must have gone up. And so we agreed to move towards the price it was costing us. Now, that was the last time we had a big spike in electricity prices that we did that. We may be on the cusp of another one, mightn't we? So we might have to do that again. But even then, we didn't go all the way to what it was costing us, and maybe we thought prices might come down again. Sorry. But yeah, I think we're still in that position, and it would make sense to have, rather than doing these in little pieces, to have a comprehensive strategy, but that would still come to us to be agreed. Okay. Sorry, Christine. Oh no, it was you, Christine. Richard.
Thanks, Chair. I think it's worth just reminding members as well around the benefits markets bring to the city. It's very easy when we're looking at the financials, but we do know that the social impacts are significant in markets. Very hard to measure, but we know the social impacts are huge. The health impacts of buying local and fresh produce is significant as well. But we do measure economic impact, and we know we've created over 300 plus jobs to the local economy via our markets and supply chains. And we know that equates to around £19 million of gross value added to the city's economy every single year, which is absolutely significant to the growth of the city. So I just wanted to chuck that in there, Chair, as a sort of wider view of the markets.
Thank you. I guess what you're saying is the markets are great. Go there, see what they've got that you can buy. Check out the food court in the Moor Market in particular. It's fabulous diversity of food. I always have lunch there when I can. And Crystal Peaks Market as well. I have a very nice pie and peas from there not so long ago. So yes, just do, but check out obviously the stalls selling things and offering services as well, because they're marvellous. Right, any further comments on this? In that case, can we agree? I'm going to read out the recommendations because they've been published separately. So I won't read out B because we've agreed not to agree that. But can we agree? A, the committee notes that progress in the areas of compliance and maintenance standards across all market sites, better aligned property management to support long-term sustainability, improved financial oversight to progress towards full cost recovery, and more coordinated communication with traders, partners and the public is essential to modernising Sheffield's markets, strengthening trader and customer experience and supporting the wider ambitions of the Council plan, and commits continued oversight from the committee to ensure that implementation remains responsive, evidence-led and aligned with the city's economic, community and environmental priorities. C, the committee is asked to note progress and endorse the continued delivery of the strategy as the service moves into the next phase of implementation. Is that agreed? I'll take silence, me nods, yes, okay, that is agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Item 10, cashless parking. Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. My name is Danny Bailey. I work in the Street Scene Services and I'm responsible for managing some of our parking services contract. The report that's been submitted seeks committee's approval to commission a new 4-year cashless parking contract. The existing contract, currently with Pay by Phone, expires on 31st of July 2026 and cannot be extended any further, and so we're required to re-procure a new service to ensure continuity. The proposed contract, valued at approximately 1.4 million over the 4 years, aims to improve operational efficiencies while supporting wider council plan outcomes. The cashless parking service is a convenient method of paying for parking. It will help deliver great neighbourhoods by improving accessibility and convenience for residents, visitors and businesses, reducing reliance on paying display machines and enabling better data-driven parking management. Alternative options were considered, including joining the national parking platform. However, this option was not progressed due to customer fees and operational limitations that could negatively impact on users. The report confirms that there are no negative equality or inclusion impacts, and the proposed service maintains continuity for all users. Legal and commercial assessments have been completed and financial details are included in the exempt Appendix A. The recommendation to members is to approve the commissioning of a new contract and to continue absorbing the operational convenience transaction fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions and comments from members? Mark, then David.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this. I think it's a really important one, isn't it, that we have the option to park as cheaply as possible in the city centre. And I think I'll just draw attention to page 76, the top of it, the paragraph beginning contracting the service. Because I think that's the key decision, isn't it, that we're taking today, whether we go through that kind of conglomerate model or whether we do the model that's proposed. And I'm satisfied that the proposal is the right one, just because it provides certainty for the cost that both we're going to bear and that residents are going to bear. So I think it's just important for anyone watching to be drawn attention to that page 76.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, thank you. I have no problems at all with the proposal. It was just a question around, given the increase in sort of fraud in car parks, you know, with false QR codes and stuff like that, will there be anything in there about the company being proactive in sort of addressing that, which is obviously their interest as well as the public, but it'd be nice to see something in there.
Going through the procurement framework, we provide a specification, and within that specification we've got our request to the provider as part of our scoring of their bid is how they will proactively manage that. I don't know how they will do that, but I'm presuming within their bid they would stipulate that for us to consider when we're valuing the contracts.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, as somebody who hates the idea of apps, near the top of page 72, there's a note that says the contract requirements can ensure clear signage, alternative payment methods for those without smartphones, etc. Are we saying that that will be written into the contract to make sure that alternative methods do stay available? Because further down it talks about increasing the amount of cashless parking means we can remove pay and display machines, which leaves me concerned that we're actually doing, they sort of don't quite fit together. And I just want some reassurance that wherever the contract is, we will have that for people who choose not to pay by phone.
Thanks for your question, Councillor. So the contract we're going out with, people primarily use an app, but our current provider and any provider we're using in the future will also provide other ways of paying for the parking services. So you don't have to have a smartphone. You can ring up, you can text, you can use your app. A number of providers also offer the option of going into local pay points and convenience shops and being able to pay with cash over the counter. So through this contract, we'll see what comes back from the providers, and that'll be part of our assessment and scoring in terms of the different ways that people can pay through this contract. Separately to that, the council makes its own decisions around its pay and display machines, and our policy currently has been to offer pay and display machines where you can pay with cash, and also those pay and display machines, a lot of them as well now will also take a contactless card or have a card reader as well. So we think it's important to provide as many options as possible. I think what we've seen is there are some locations where, for security reasons quite often, so you know we do have sites where we've had people steal pay and display machines out the ground, which is a significant cost to replace. Often the cost of that is incurred by the council to replace those and make things good is much in excess of what is actually in those pay and display machines, because we work hard to make sure there's very little cash left in any pay and display machines at any time anyway. So from a security point, there will be some places where we think it's not suitable to put a pay and display machine, but the contract will allow a number of other routes, not just apps, to pay as well.
I really do think it's important. I've had a number of complaints over, periods of time about places in Sheffield where if you don't own a smartphone or you've left your smartphone at home, you basically take a risk of getting a fine, or you have to leave Sheffield and go somewhere else, because it's not clear where you go. And I don't know the technology. I don't understand the, different options. But if people can pay by a debit card, that surely doesn't leave a risk of theft. So if that's an option, even without the cash, I would say that was better than being forced just to use your phone.
Wrong button there. Whose decision is it? It's not come to this committee to install areas without pay and display machines that are app only. Is it a transport committee decision or is it operational? So we could have a policy. If we had a policy, would it be a policy for this committee or TRC to have to say we don't want app only options, or we only want them in these circumstances or something? Where would we have to say that?
I believe because it's an operational decision, then that would come to this committee, I believe, but also we could check that.
Operational decision, yes, it is currently an operational decision, I agree. If we were to adopt a policy to guide that operation, what I'm asking is, which committee would that policy belong to? Rob?
Well, it's a policy relating to the functions of this committee, so for this committee.
Excellent, that's the answer. Well, so I think so. The answer to the question is we can consider that as a policy. Whether we want to to guide going forward questions around removal of pay and display machines. I do quite agree that well, I agree we don't want to be putting machines where they're going to get ripped out and cost us more money than everything. I think people need another option, and I think I would very much support the idea of having a shop that you can go into and pay there, or just get an hour's free, just tap on a screen in the shop on the way in or something. we might even think about this as a way of managing parking, not necessarily as a revenue thing, but managing parking. A lot of district centres, I know in my ward, I'm sure other members have the same experience, Totley Rise and Dore Village, at the top of 20 Lane and Bradway, there is parking and there are shops, and the parking is usually full, and it's currently free, obviously. If there was a system just to manage that parking whereby you can park, you can go into a shop, you can tap on the screen and say, I'm here, and you get an hour, or 3 hours if it's a hairdresser, you know, whatever it is, as a way of managing that parking so that those shops get the trade that they deserve. And incidentally, the way you would do that is you'd have a sign on the thing saying, pay by app or go into the shop, and people could pay to park there as well. That might be a solution to a problem that we could have, which isn't actually what we're looking at here, is it? But it'd be an opportunity. So maybe we could do that. Peter, go on.
Thank you, Joe. Chair. Yeah, I think it's really good, and it's great to have these ideas floated. I think that's the beauty of a committee system, that we all get our heads around issues like this. And my little idea here is, would it also not be possible to be able to pay for parking within the 24 hours that you've been there? A bit like clean air zones and things like that, where as long as you pay within the 24 hours, you don't get fined.
And what if you've got the ticket within 24 hours, though?
Well, obviously, we're the ones giving the ticket, so we could delay by 24 hours, couldn't we?
No, well, within 24 hours that have driven off. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. At the moment, if you don't pay to park in your bay, you get a ticket if you're found, and then you have to pay £30 for not having paid. I mean...
I get that. In our current way, we put the ticket on the car, right? But, maybe there's a system, I'm thinking outside the box, maybe there's a system where you can receive it in the post or in the mail or by your email or something like that. I'm sorry if I'm not right.
No, okay, I commend you for thinking outside the box. Ben, is there a good answer to Councillor Gill?
So, it's not something that's open to us as a local authority, but the system you're describing, I've experienced through private operators elsewhere. So where you've got AMPR camera enforcement, then that's possible. Unfortunately for us as local authorities, we're not able to use that particular method of enforcement. So although it is something that's in operation in some private locations, we can't do that on street.
It's a question of powers. Maybe there'll be another announcement of powers from the government, Mark. That would be nice. Okay. Any other comments on this item? Questions? I mean, I will comment actually on the decision regarding the national parking platform, because when I came to this, I thought, well, the national parking platform is an excellent thing. It's the future. It makes everything easier. You only have to have one app, and you can have whichever app you want. But having looked at it in some detail, actually, it's actually quite an old initiative. It was tried several years ago to simplify app-based parking across the country. It hasn't worked because very few authorities have had it. I looked at my phone. I've already got, as well as pay by phone, which we have here, I already have Ringo. I already have Just Park as well. I'd forgotten about I had that. I think I might have another couple. You know, you've got such a big list of apps these days. So, and there aren't that many. I mean, I don't know how many there are like to choose from. I mean, how far beyond those, the ones that are big, are we likely to be? So you may find that people who travel around already have all of those apps, and so that the expected gain of the MPP is probably not there at all, and all the kind of the financial risks. And the fact that it didn't work and then it was sold off to the industry for them to manage, obviously makes it a very different proposition to what it might have been at the start. And then the idea of having to put a transaction fee on top, I must say I find objectionable. You know, it costs us money to collect cash from parking meters. We don't charge people extra for using cash, and nor should we. So why just because it costs money for somebody to run a service somewhere, do we have to charge the customer a collection fee? It seems wrong. So for all these reasons, I'm happy with the recommendation not to go with the MPP and to put it out to competitive tender. The other thing I just wanted to comment on, and one of the members raised, the amount of fraudulent QR code stickers that we get around the city. So the question is that something we can consider in the procurement? Because so far our message has been very clear. In Sheffield, we do not use QR codes. If you see a QR code on a council parking area, it is not ours, it is a fraud. Don't use it. I'd like to be able to keep that clarity. Will we be able to keep that clarity, or are we opening the procurement up to operators that do use QR codes?
I think going back to Dan's response earlier, we'll be asking people as part of bidding for this contract to tell us how they're going to reduce the risk of fraud. So we'll be able to evaluate that as part of the competitive tender process. So we'll have to wait to see what comes back through. But clearly, I think the message has been really clear here from committee, and I think it's clear from our point of view. You know, we don't want to introduce risks around fraud. We want to do everything to minimise and mitigate that. So that's what we're looking at as part of that.
As part of the tender review as well, there's also a marketing part of it where it speaks about how they will work with the local authority on the marketing of the product, so we can also input into that of our priorities, which may be fraudulent activities within city and parking and QR codes.
All right, thank you for that. So if no further comments, can we move to a decision on this? Our members agreed. I'll take silence to the assent of the meeting. That's agreement to the recommendations on page, let me just find the page to point out to you. No, I've lost it. 69. Page 69 of the pack. I'll take silence to the assent of the meeting. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 11. Climate statement. While you're just gaining your seats, I'll just make the comment before you start that I always make on this. Look, it's a list of our kind of environmental related policies that have impact on the environment, which is great. I don't see how this fits into a strategy in terms of our role, the role of other committees, the role of the government, and so on. A net zero strategy in any length of time, but perhaps there is a big picture that I'm missing. Richard.
Thanks, Chair. So the Environmental Services and Regulation Policy Committee Climate Statement sets out how the committee will contribute to Sheffield City Council's commitment to become a net zero and council by 2030. It restates the cross-party commitment to climate action, highlights the risk posed by the climate emergency, and outlines the actions across services and committees to accelerate progress. Despite ongoing work, Sheffield is not reducing emissions at the pace required to stay within its carbon budget. The latest annual climate progress report reinforces the agency of scaling activity and addressing national policy uncertainty. Significant investment of coordinated citywide effort will be required and is required, alongside robust policy frameworks and strengthened adaptation planning. The SR Committee's climate statement clarifies how the committee's remit aligns with climate action, including its role in decision-making, service planning and contributing to the wider organisational climate commitments. It identifies emissions the committee can influence, the impacts and opportunities from acting and key climate-related activities already and what could be in the work programme. Members will be aware that they've had the opportunity to influence what goes in the plan through briefing sessions and ongoing development of the committee work programme. Delivering on these commitments supports the council plan outcomes around clean, green neighbourhoods, improved health and well-being, strong public protection and community-driven environmental stewardship. The statement reinforces that climate action provides significant core benefits including lower energy costs, green job growth, safer streets and healthier homes. While the statement itself does not directly reduce emissions, it is a critical enabler of consistent aligned decisions, underpinned by the requirement to complete climate impact assessments at key stages in all policy decisions. Its effectiveness depends on future decisions maintaining alignment with the Council's climate ambition. There are no immediate financial or legal implications directly from this statement, but the broader transition to net zero will require multi-billion-pound investment, changes to procurement, service delivery and workforce capability, with long-term financial and social benefits outweighing short-term pressures. With this in mind, the committee are asked through its delegated authority to monitor the performance of streets in regulation services to ensure that the response to the annual climate progress report is open and transparent in setting out the actual challenges which the local authority faces and this committee faces in making progress, and clarifies future expectations on the part we all have to play in addressing climate change. The committee consider, and if not previously agreed, agree with or without amendments to ensure that the proposed actions contained in the climate statement form part of the annual work programme, and the council is delivering on corporate priorities where it's possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Christine.
Thank you for this, Richard. I welcome the plan and I hope we can continue to strengthen it. I have two questions in two separate areas. One is really just a comment, and it's about the improved waste collection services that are happening supposedly on the 1st of April for the brown bins. And we haven't, as residents, we haven't had any information yet about what we can do with our brown bins. And I'm pointing this out now because most of us have had our brown bins emptied under the old regime for the last time. And we have been told we'll be getting new information about what we can do, and we haven't had it yet. So I just wonder if you could let us know when residents will be knowing what they can put in their new brown bins, because everybody's waiting eagerly.
Thank you, Councillor. I will take that away as an action and come back to you by close of play today on the full detail. But I know comms have started to go out via various media, social media. Comms have gone out linked to the new blue bin, the bigger blue bin, and also what else you can put in the brown bin from the 1st of April. But I am actively aware, electronic comms, not everybody sees that. So we do need to look at paper comms as well. Absolutely. And there is a plan in the next few weeks to get that out. I do take on board, I'm like you, my brown bin's already been emptied and I'm starting to fill it already. So I do need to know what I can put in that, but I'll take that as a direct action. I'll come back to our close of play today.
Thank you. Paper would be good. I think every household should get a leaflet, really. But the second item I have is about trees. And I welcome the strategy. I'm just thinking it talks about areas with lower tree cover. You know, there's just read it and I've forgotten now. There's a strategy to increase the tree cover in areas with lower tree coverage. How is this happening? How will it happen? Do residents have to pay for these trees, or will they go up? Because I know in my ward there are a few areas with no trees at all, and I'm sure we'd like a few trees, and I'd just like to know how it will happen.
Thanks, Councillor. So there's multiple ways in the strategy, which is in partnership with the Street Tree Partnership, which, as you'll be aware, is made up of a group of key stakeholders from across the city, including the City Council. So for the strategy, for the Street Tree strategy going into this year, we are actively looking at areas and doing projects in Darnall, where we're aiming for 200 new street trees across Darnall. We're also working closely with STAG, Sheffield Tree Action Group, who are acquiring funding to put trees in, again, low equity areas elsewhere across the city. And then working with local groups as well to actively explore opportunities to put more trees in, again, in low equity areas. So hopefully in the next few 6 or 7 months, some major steps forward in that sort of tree canopy cover will start to take shape. It's early days because particularly the 200 in Darnall, we do need to look at funding, external funding. So we're pulling sponsorship packages together to work with local business and city businesses to help us deliver those schemes. But it's quite exciting. The strategy's done a lot of forming and norming over the last few years, but we're getting to the point now, again, working in partnership where we can see actually putting trees in the ground on a big scale. So the next 6-12 months, we'll see a significant difference across the city as regards new trees.
Thanks. I've seen a couple of hands, but just going back to the question about Christine's first question about the brown bins. I believe I said on Radio Sheffield on Monday morning that people would be getting a leaflet in the next couple of weeks. I hope that's true.
It is, Chair, and thanks for that. I just need to check the date when that's going out. So one of the plans is the leaflet, but also putting an attachment to the bins. I'm not sure why it's not gone on to the brown bins, which have just been emptied going into the new year. I will check that, but that's definitely the plan, and that's in play, where we'll put a label onto bins to explain the new changes, and also the leaflet as well. But I will, as I've mentioned, I will take that away as an action and come back to members by close of play today.
Okay, thank you. Mark. Peter first.
Thank you, Chair. Richard, if I may, looking at page 100 to 102, it's to do with future waste management service options. And we have progress so far listed as specifically to do with supporting campaigns to encourage more food recycling and composting. It says progress so far. Details of the support available to community groups interested in establishing a community composting scheme were provided at the Council's environmental volunteering event in April 2025, and the details of support are available on the Council's website. I can't find this information on the website, so maybe you could send me a link or check that it is on there. And I'd say I am concerned that there are no actions on this theme for 2026-2027. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I'll take that as an action, and the environmental toolkit is a key resource for that as well, which members are aware of. It is out there in the public domain, although it's not been publicly announced yet. Well, there's still some beta testing on that, but that's contained in there. There is something on the website as well, which I will take away and get a link to that. I suppose on the wider question around what goes into the climate impact statement for next year's work programme, we've got an opportunity, I think, in June, July, where officers and members will come together as a committee to develop that work programme. So there's a big opportunity there to get this as one of the key priorities to shape our actions going forward for the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you. Mark.
Thank you. A couple of points. Just building on Christine's point about the trees, can we just make sure when that group is working with residents that it's working both ways? Because trees do quite often come up in my patch and they don't always come up positively. So it's working with groups whether they want trees or not, and actually genuinely listening to the wants and needs of communities, because they do differ. Second point is just on page, where am I? 96, it's part 10. And it's just recognising in those, so it's part 10, other implications, that we should be recognising that we should be prioritising work in this area, particularly where it leads to an enhancement of jobs, better paid jobs, an enhancement of the local economy as well. It's not an either or here. And I think sometimes in the paper it's almost suggested, I think surreptitiously, that you can either have the green stuff or you can have the economic benefits and the employment benefits. And I think sometimes that will be the case, and we should probably avoid those trade-offs. And where we can do things that's pro-growth and pro-jobs and good, decent jobs, we should be doing that.
Thanks, Councillor. On your first question, yeah, 100%, it's got to be done with, not to. And that's a big conversation in the Street Tree Partnership. When we're putting new trees in identifying spaces, we've got to work with the local community. The local community's got to want to embrace that. So where we do put new trees in, then it's done with the community rather than to. On your second point, absolutely, we'll shape this for next year. We have tried to bring out the impact. It's not either or. It's integral creation of new jobs and green jobs, particularly around the climate impact statement. But I will take that away as detail for the next iteration of this climate impact to make sure that comes out front and centre.
Thanks. Sue.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the report. I'm slightly concerned. Sorry, page 105 I'm on. I know it says it's going to be coming later to committee, that it looks like we might have to take a backward step on the Hackney carriage policy, but you might have to comment on that. And my other comment is, when we have presumably we're going to get this report every year, is that right? Can it be presented so that we can see the actions we've agreed this year, and then, because what it doesn't show us is the actions we specifically agreed last year and whether we've achieved them all. And I think it's much better from a point of view of feeling that we're monitoring progress if we can see the actions that are agreed this year and how far we got with them would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. On your first question, is it relating to hackney carriages and availability? Is it?
Yes, it is. It's that point.
But, yeah.
Yeah, so we know from a supply chain point of view, there is issues with EV taxis, particularly hackney carriages. Once that position changes, we will adopt that and bring it to members to agree as a policy. We're working with industry, we're working with the taxi trade to look at what alternatives. And you'll know from the next item, we can see hybrid vehicles are increasing, continue to increase. EV vehicles very, very slowly and not at the pace we want to. Quite a lot of that is completely out of our hands. It is an international picture, but obviously as soon as we get any change in technology or any guidance from central government on EV hackney carriages, then we'll share that with the trade and work closely with the trade on that.
Thank you. I was going to mention it on the next item, but if you do look at page 127, it's a huge growth in the proportion of hybrid and electric vehicles, mostly hybrids, as you say, which I think this committee can take some credit for, having brought in policies a couple of years ago to incentivise hybrids and electrics relative to ICE. We can see the impact. I've always said we've probably done a lot more good with that policy than the whole clean air zone did, but that's a fight we can have with TRC another time. So yes, a couple of comments from me. I agree with the comments about Mark about the tone in relating to economic growth and jobs and all that. That's really important. I'm going to float an idea out here. So this statement we have because it is part of a strategy across the whole council. Each committee looks at its patch and explains what it's doing on climate change. And the strategic lead for that, correct me if I'm wrong, sits with Transport, Regeneration and Climate Committee. I'm getting nods. Okay. So we've not heard back from them as to whether this is the sort of thing they want from us, have we? I hesitate slightly. It might be a dangerous thing to do. We might not like the answer we get. But perhaps we should ask TRC whether, having produced a statement like this now for 3 or 4 years in a row, whether it's making the contribution they need to the overall policy on climate or not, or if there's something else they think we should be looking at. I mean, is that something we can reasonably ask for feedback, ask for our homework to be marked by the people in charge of this policy? Is that something we can do? Richard.
Thanks, Chair. As you'd expect, we have shared this report and consulted with our colleagues in sustainability and climate impact teams. So they've fed into this report and we've utilised their comments, but we've not shared it with TRC. So I think it's a good challenge. I'd also suggest a discussion needs to be held at Statutory and Resources as well, because they own the corporate climate impact statement.
Yes, I remember Councillor Johnson arguing there should be more of a strategic lead from SR on climate. I forget where that decision ended up, so that's a useful point. Well, look, can I ask members to agree that we ask for our homework to be marked on this and for some feedback from TRC? Let's go to TRC in the first place. Let's not send everything to SNR unnecessarily, because otherwise we're going to have a report like this every year, and 2030 is coming quite soon. I think I'm getting nods on that. I'm getting nods or absolute stillness. I'll take that as agreement to the meeting. Thank you on that point. Okay, so moving to the recommendations then. It's not a page. My page numbers here are all wrong. Which will be to note the statement, won't they? Page 89, thank you. Yes, consider, and if not previously agreed, agree with or without amendments their respective statement to ensure that proposed actions contained in such statements are reflected in with their work programme. Is that what we're agreeing? What does it mean? Right. No, we're asked to agree that the statement, that the climate plan is reflecting the work programme. I'm not sure that it is, frankly. Well, can we pass that on to the work planning session for the new committee in the new year? Okay. But maybe if we can get the feedback from TRC first, then we can do an even better job of that. Excellent. Okay. Can we then agree that recommendation on page 89? I'm going to read it again. Okay. Thank you. That's agreed. Excellent. Final item, item 12, quarter 3 performance monitoring report.
Thanks, Chair. So, overall performance across environmental services and regulation remains stable, with the majority of measures meeting or exceeding target. Delivery continues to show resilience despite capacity pressures in some service areas, and key highlights and issues for the board's attention are summarised next. Street scene services, parking and EV charging. Enforcement activity dipped slightly due to seasonal operational factors. So a point of note, this is quarter 3 up to December last year. EV charging usage continues to grow slowly, supporting clean air objectives. Markets and city centre management. Moor Market continues to perform strongly with footfall and occupancy on target. Crystal Peaks Market occupancy remains below target due to a major tenant departure, though interest in units is increasing. City centre footfall fell, influenced by infrastructure works and seasonal events. CCTV and public protection remains high availability. Demand for footage remains consistent with city centre activity. Taxi licensing, all licensing renewals processed on time. 100% DBS compliance maintained. Growth continues in low emission vehicles within the fleet. Environmental regulation. Fly tipping incidents down on the previous quarter, but still above the same period last year. CCTV deployment limitations have constrained enforcement outcomes. Food safety. Inspections remain below target due to national shortage of qualified officers. Most businesses remain broadly compliant. Targeted enforcement and resilience actions are underway within service. Highways maintenance. Delivery programmes remain on track, with resurfacing exceeding targets. Safety critical response times continue to outperform standards. However, we are aware and taking positive action around increased potholes, which were observed late in quarter 3 and continuing into quarter 4. We've got an action plan in place, working closely with members, additional response teams deployed, and we will be monitoring this through quarter 4 to make sure it's having the successes the city needs. Waste management, high performance maintained on collections and treatment despite strike activity by Veolia staff. Recycling remains above target, composting below target due to reduced garden waste volumes, seasonal impacts, but improvement plans are in development for the work programme for next year. The performance frameworks provides a golden thread linking City Council plans outcomes to service delivery, with quarter 3 reporting reinforcing transparency and members' ability to scrutinise delivery. Services continue to contribute directly to the Council plan priorities, which are clean, green, safe neighbourhoods, improved health and well-being, enhanced local environment and climate action, and strong public protection. Some risks and issues for committee awareness. Food safety staffing constraints continue to pose risks to meeting regulatory inspection targets. Fly tipping enforcement limitations due to CCTV constraints may affect future performance if not addressed. And pothole increases emerging at the end of quarter 3 require sustained operational focus. Some recommendations. Overall stable quarter 3 performance. Support shaping future performance measures to strengthen reporting relevance and alignment with council plan outcomes and committee needs. Highlight service areas requiring deeper scrutiny, notably food safety resilience, fly tipping enforcement and highways defect trends. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, thank you for the report. I'm just saying, before I come to comments, I think we've got the format of this is a lot better. I know we've worked on this over the last couple of years. The format is a lot better. The data visualisation and commentary is really good. There's a few niggles with us, obviously still And the narrative section at the beginning is also really good, again with a few minor niggles. So I'm really pleased with that. We could always tinker, we could keep tinkering forever, I'm sure, and I'm sure we'll come back to tinker again, but let's not do that today if we can help it too much. Christine.
Yes, thank you. I have two comments come questions, I'm not sure. One is just for information that I would like really, and it's about the EV chargers, because I know that in the last reporting we had problems with them being vandalised. And I'm just curious, have we got over that problem? Are all our chargers now working and repaired and not being vandalised again?
Thanks for that question. Really good news in terms of the type of chargers that tend to get vandalised are the rapid ones that have got the cables attached to them. So obviously not the ones where you bring your own cables and plug them. It's the ones where you've got the cables attached to them. We've been working with the supplier really hard over the last few months, and I think we can come back to the committee and reporting that. As of currently, they are now rolling out additional security measures to reduce the risk of those cables being stolen once they've been reattached to the devices. So actually, I was walking up Howard Street yesterday afternoon, seeing their operatives in place, putting these additional security measures on. So hopefully what we'll see now over the next quarter is an increase in usage of those, particularly the high voltage ones. We'll see an increased usage in the next quarter. So that'll be really positive.
Thank you. And then next point, and this isn't probably a question, we've just been looking at the climate goals and asking questions about those. Do they not have to go in our performance if they're in our... How does all this tie together? There you go. That's my question.
Thanks, Councillor. So the current dashboard, you recall, we've developed the measures members want to see. So we've got the work planning session in June, July this year. That's a big opportunity to refresh what the work plan going forward is, linked to our service plan, which is more operational, and then what you want to see as members for public scrutiny on the dashboard. So it's not in there at the moment, or there are some climate impact measures in there, but we can put more in. Below this tier, there's an operational dashboard which has got all those measures in already. It's just that it's more operational based, business as usual delivery for officers to make sure we're tracking performance. But some of those can be elevated to be in this dashboard for member and public scrutiny, and that opportunity is the work planning session.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just raise it because we have been talking about it. You know, we do this climate statement, and we have asked now for it to be incorporated into our work plan to make sure we are doing things to make our climate impact less. And we've also asked TRC to let us know how we're doing. So I do think it ought to become somewhere in our reporting of what we actually do as a committee.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment. Mark.
Thanks. 4 points just to pick up, but they're not necessarily ones, you know, for a full discussion now. I think, Richard, when you talked about the potholes, I know you didn't mean it this way, but I think the weekly updates are really important for both us and for residents to know that those updates are coming in, so that we're starting to see the number, the backlog reduce week on week. The weather is better now, so it should be doing that. Page 120, Ian, I think this is one for you. Limitations on the deployment of CCTV equipment have impacted some enforcement outcomes and have been actively considered. I know certainly from my own perspective of deployment of CCTV in my ward, I would say it's been very positive because we've had stuff deployed in one of the fly tipping hotspots on Winkbank Lane in the last couple of weeks. And it's actually been positive bizarrely because it hasn't necessarily worked in the first place because it's not positioned correctly. But we've got feedback from residents, officers have come out and changed it. I think that's a model of how these things should work. So I'd commend that, and just interested to hear what sits behind that comment in the dashboard. And then I think worth noting the food inspections. I understand the reasons for the lack of inspections, but it is worrying. And I think we should be taking an update report in one of our briefings in the next few weeks. And then the final point, 132, again, one for you, Ian, is that information triangulated both with the AMI information? Because I think sometimes they're holding, on the waste crime offences, their information is held slightly separately to ours, and then will it be held, will it be triangulated with the extra information that the Environment Agency officers are going to have now that they've got extra powers? Because having it all sat in 3 separate places doesn't quite make sense. We want to see the totality, and particularly we want to see where are those hotspots and what's been done. And it might not be done by us, it might be done by colleagues in other services, but ultimately residents don't care, do they? They just want it dealt with, and rightly so.
Thank you. Councillor? Right, so in terms of the CCTV, we have now just had a breakthrough on that in terms of as long as we indemnify Amy for the cost of replacement, we are now putting units back up, so that's a very imminent change, so that's really positive news. And don't worry, the costs are not astronomical, it's a fairly modest figure, but they did tell us they'd had tens of units cut down, and therefore it was significant to them. So they are starting to go back up, so that's really good news, for example, for council housing services that had bought 5 units and yet had not been able to put them up. So they will all be going up. The reason why there's been the drop there, I think your last point there was around the numbers of FPNs. It's both it was both around that issue of not being able to put them up, but also because the Bringit sites were closed. That was where we were getting lots of tickets, because there would been some really bad levels of fly tipping at some of those as well. So I think we will get a big increase now we're putting the cameras in, but until they're all on stream again, we probably won't get back to some of the same levels. In terms of the data that you talked about and where the incidents are and things like that, we've got a really effective fly tipping reduction group now. You might recall from the briefings that we've had senior managers from Amy, Veolia, the council, the police, all working together on almost like a training programme, a workshop programme, to make sure that we can work as well as we need to together. And as part of that, we're getting some really good results. So we're pulling that data together. So I think we've got the best partnership that we've probably ever had now. And we're getting offers of, increased support from Veolia and Amy. Only at the last meeting, they're proposing to put a camera in themselves. This is Veolia in one particular area. So I think, yeah, absolutely, we will get that information, and it will help deliver more enforcement. And briefly on the food, yeah, obviously it's something we're monitoring closely. We've got to try and get a bit upstream of the inspections, because unfortunately there are too many premises that when we do a visit, the standards are poor, and that takes a lot of officer time. So the more we can do to get some information upstream to them, to say, look, if there's nothing else you do, make sure that you've kept your pest control contract. A lot of this is linked to the cost of living as well, that businesses are cutting back on things. They're cutting back on staff, they're cutting back on cleaning, they're cutting back on pest control contracts, and they're just about hanging on. We're going into some businesses, there's often no stock in there. They're going every day to Macro to get stock and things like that. It's a pretty tough climate out there for them, and obviously with energy bills are going to be going up again, I think it's going to get harder. So we do expect that by year end there'll be a small backlog, but we are recruiting at the minute, and that will help. And as a city, Sheffield has had 7 environmental health officers apprenticeships. So as a city, we're doing our bit.
Thank you. Any more from members? I have a couple of comments on, if I can find them, on a couple of the so just to be clear, the markets data on page 125, it's got quarterly footfall figures for Moor and Crystal Peaks. Am I right in thinking they are the changes for the quarter compared to the same quarter in the previous year? Because it's not clear to me from that. So it's kind of a... And it does make sense to compare a quarter with the same point in the previous year, because there's obviously seasonal fluctuation as well, so that's a way to get that out. It just, I think, it needs to be clear what it is. And so for the more markets, because we've had 5 positive quarters at the end there, that looks like a trend uptick, you know, across the whole year. Crystal Peaks obviously doesn't look as good as that, and that's something we need to, I think something we need to be, give some focus to. Going forward, which through the market strategy and the members reference group, perhaps. Okay, but is that right about the quarters?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you. I did also want to. I forget where it was. One of the figures said we haven't. The footfall indicator stopped working, and so we've just put in a projection there. I mean, I'd rather you didn't actually. If it's just a projection, then it won't pick up. You know, we're looking at these figures for something we're not expecting, and a projection is always going to be something, you know, what you would expect. So I'd rather admit that we haven't got the figures if the full indicator's not working. I did have a question mark on another one. Yeah, just a question mark on page 130. We're just looking at the numbers of, they're all in grey in this version, unfortunately, so I can't give the colours, but it's about traffic penalty tribunals, decisions allowed, withdrawn, not contested and dismissed and so on. And then there's a commentary which I'm not sure what exactly those figures relate to, because it just gives another version of the set of figures as if that was another quarter or something. Yeah, I'm not clear what that means, but also generally, I mean, I can't see now because it's all grey, but when I was looking at it on my computer and there were colours, it seemed that we were not contesting or losing a significant number of tribunal decisions, and I have to ask, you know, is there a problem there? Is there a, you know, we shouldn't be sending somebody a ticket if we're not going to contest them if they appeal it, should we?
So thanks for that question, Chair. So to explain, I think that the figures in the commentary show that 3 have been allowed once they've got to Traffic Penalty Tribunal. And again, just to explain the process, anybody receiving a PCN can appeal, and the council will look at that appeal against its own policies first to make a decision. If somebody's not happy with the council's decision, then they've got the option to take that to Traffic Penalty Tribunal. So these are cases that the council's already had a look at and made a decision on, that somebody's then challenged and taken to the independent Traffic Penalty Tribunal. Allowed means that that appeal has been allowed in favour of the motorist that's took it. So 3 out of all those cases were found in the motorist's favour after the council had already made an initial decision. 15, so significantly higher than that, the motorist had their Traffic Penalty Tribunal appeal dismissed, so finding in favour of the council's original decision. Not contest is where the council's made a decision not to contest the motorist appeal through. So it doesn't have a decision. It gets to the Traffic Penalty Tribunal and the council decides not to contest it at that point. Quite often that's in connection with people that have got vehicles that have been leased or vehicles that have been hired, and the council has followed through these processes, and it's only then at that point at the Traffic Penalty Tribunal sometimes the motorists come forward to say, you know, for example, enterprise cars may come to that Traffic Penalty Tribunal and say it wasn't us, it's obviously somebody that's rented from us, and then we'll not contest it and reallocate the fine. So just because there's a high number of not contested, that doesn't mean there's anything necessarily wrong with how the council's been approaching things. Quite often information will only be supplied at that point, and then the council will decide not to contest it.
Thank you. So that clears up the non-contest or some of the non-contests, obviously, as you've explained. So the figures in the commentary, you've said what they all mean, but they're the same categories as the figures in the bar chart to the left. But on the bar chart to the left, each set of figures is labelled with a quarter.
Yeah.
And then the commentary, you've got another set of figures that's not labelled with a quarter. So what does that refer to?
Yeah, so I think that refers to just that last quarter. That's the totals of the last quarter.
Oh, I see. Okay, it refers to the last quarter. Okay. There's a 13 somewhere on the last quarter. 13 allowed, it says. Anyway, look, let's not go into this any further. I think for everything else, the commentary has been a useful kind of explanation of what we're seeing. That's what we need. We don't need a restatement of one of the figures and one of the sets of figures in the thing. So if we have that in future, that would be useful. Okay, all right, that's it from me on this. There are lots of other things I could go into, and I'm sure we'll go into again in future. Any other comments from members on this item? If not, can we agree the recommendations on page 117? I am supremely confident it's the right page, which is to note the report, and, well, note the report and items 2 and 3, which we've done. Is that agreed? Thank you. I'm seeing nods. That item is agreed. That concludes today's meeting, includes the last meeting, as members have said, and officers of the Environmental Services and Regulation Policy Committee for this civic year. So I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. I hope you've enjoyed it watching at home, and we'll see you next year if we're all still here.